We all like to save money in our garden, but to really get a low-cost garden, it takes planning. Join me today as I share with you 10 ways that I plan for a low-cost garden. I'm a pretty patient gardener, and patience is a key component of low-cost gardening. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott. When it comes to planning to save money, most of the things you have to do take time, and that's where patience comes in. If you want a big garden, a fancy garden, a very productive garden right off the bat, you're going to have to pay for it. But if you're willing to take a little time and plan for the future, you can definitely drive your costs down. Right off the bat, one of the best ways to save money in the garden is to grow from seed. And you've probably heard that before. But what many gardeners fail to do is plan far enough ahead to get their seeds. So we end up waiting until the tomato plants and the pepper plants and the squash plants are in the stores before we decide that that's what we want to grow. And then we have to pay full cost for a plant. But by planning that you're going to put tomatoes and peppers and squashes in your garden, you can get seeds well ahead of time for a fraction of the cost of a real plant. And as you look at your entire landscape, you can think beyond just the vegetable garden. I grow things like lavender. Lavender is a great herb, a great ornamental plant. I'm growing it from seed in my basement. Rather than spending the money on a full-size plant, I'm spending my money on a seed and getting dozens of plants at a fraction of the cost of a single live plant. I do the same thing with a lot of my native plants, like this agastache and penstemon and other flowering perennials that I put in my landscape. To buy them from a nursery or online becomes cost prohibitive if you only want one or two plants. But I can get a package of seeds and again, grow dozens of them as part of the plan in my landscape. And learn to think beyond seeds when it comes to adding new plants to your landscape. Learn more about propagation, propagating plants that you already have, but that you want more of. Plants like this strawberry. I have some strawberries growing in this bed. Well, as they sent out the runners, I potted up some of the daughter plants. And now I have dozens of pots that I can spread throughout my landscape. In this area behind me, I'm going to be growing a lot of perennials and native plants. Well, I'm also going to have some hedges dividing the sections. Hedges made out of yew. I already have some yew plants in my landscape. So I took cuttings and I've been growing them under lights in my basement. As these plants get bigger, I'll bring them outside and put them into this new area. Growing your own landscape plants from seed or cuttings will save you a ton of money, but it takes time. Again, you have to have patience, and you need to have a plan. You need to figure out what plants you want in your landscape so that you can then decide what seeds to get or find cuttings as part of a propagation method. Another very important way to save money is to make your own soil. If you have great soil to start with, wonderful, go for it, but many of us don't. Many of us need to amend our soil with compost that we make, another free product, or actual soil that we'll be planting in, like in this lasagna garden bed. This is sheet composting. So I have layers of different types of organic material here that will decompose over time. I've already planned to put popcorn in this bed next year. But to get the bed ready and to get free soil, I had to put all the organic material in place this year so it has time to decompose. Learn to reuse a lot of the materials you have in your landscape. I use a lot of tree branches for edging, like in this lasagna garden bed. I also use tree branches for trellising. I used this trellis for my tomatoes this year. And I use tree branches in a different way to make the edge for this garden bed. So this was all part of my plan, and I had to decide, did I cut little pieces and put them in place vertically, or did I leave them long and use them as a trellis or a border for another bed? By thinking ahead and anticipating what you have in your garden when you clean up, you can save a ton of money. If I had a lot of river rock at the back of my property, you could bet I'd be using a lot of river rock as edging for my beds. I recognize that there are times you may want to or need to buy plants in your landscaping garden, and that's okay. But when you do, try to buy the smallest plant possible. If you can get a small tomato plant, it's going to cost much less than a big tomato plant in a big pot. And that small plant is going to catch up to the bigger one pretty soon. I have a lot of fruit trees in my landscape. I didn't buy full-size trees. I bought young bare root trees. I've got patience and I've got time to allow these plants to grow. Sure, it's going to take an extra year, maybe two, before I get fruit, but I've saved a lot of money by taking this approach. And growing fruit trees and all of these plants around me is another great way to save money. You put the tree in, and then for years you'll get harvests of that particular fruit, just like these currants and the asparagus and the raspberries. I've got these plants in place now, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. For decades to come, I'm going to get harvests from all of these plants. And what makes it so wonderful is you can grow asparagus from seed, and you can grow currants from cuttings. By combining some of these methods, you can save a huge amount of money and have delicious fruit to eat. Growing perennial vegetables and fruits will save you money over a very long period of time, but it requires planning, because once those plants are in place, that's where they have to stay. So think about it, plan for it, and then you'll reap all of those savings. Another area that takes planning and thinking ahead is one like this. I'm developing this new part of my garden to grow perennial flowers and herbs and grasses. Why? For the purpose of attracting beneficial insects and animals. Why? Because I won't have to buy any chemicals to deal with the pests in my garden. By having a dedicated area of my garden to attract those beneficials, I let nature take care of it for me. Those beneficial insects and animals will deal with all of my pests. And not only will I not use any chemicals at all, but there's no cost associated with it. One of my favorite ways of saving money in the garden is by mulching. And by mulching with products that I can get for free or at almost no cost. Like these bagged leaves that I got from my garden buddy Frank, and all these wood chips that I picked up for almost nothing at a local chipping site. They're great organic mulches. They improve the soil, they reduce the water evaporation from the soil, which is important for me because I have to pay for my water, and watering the garden can be expensive. Well, mulch helps reduce that cost. There are so many benefits to mulch that you should definitely be doing it if you aren't already. And if you can mulch with free products, what's better than that? And another good thing to do when it comes to saving money is to not grow more than you really need to. And I've been guilty of this for many years. If you're growing for food, well, only grow what you're going to eat. And if you have limited time and resources, well, only grow what you can take care of. So often in the past, I've grown way more plants than I could take care of or I could even harvest, and they ended up in the compost pile. Well, I had to buy that seed, or I had to buy those plants, or I had to take the time to put all of that in the ground. That's all wasted. So come up with your plan and try to be accurate as far as what you want to eat. And don't grow those plants you're not going to eat unless it's part of an intentional experiment. And don't grow too much because, like most of us have experienced with zucchini, we think 4 or 5 zucchini plants will be great, And then at the end of the season, we're so tired of eating zucchini, and nobody we know wants more zucchini, it all ends up in the compost pile. Avoid all of that in the beginning by planning what you need, what you want, and sticking with the plan. This next method might be right in front of you, but you haven't really thought much about it. It's to develop your gardening network, your friends and family, those around you who also like gardening. You might be able to get free seeds from a neighbor who gardens. You might be able to get cuttings from a family member. You can start, again, putting a lot of these methods together to save money in the garden. If there's a particular tool you want, but it's outside your price range, well, maybe go in with someone else and split the cost, because they can use the tool when you're not using it. A lot of seeds can be bought in bulk at very low cost. So get a group of gardeners together who are all interested in getting that seed. You pay less, you usually get more, and there's a cost savings at every step of the process. Join a garden club. Garden clubs are great resources, not only for information and new friendships, but for a lot of the things you're going to use in your garden. You can borrow tools from someone else that has it. You don't have to spend the money. There's a lot about this that you can use just by developing your network. If you've benefited from any of the information in this video, I encourage that you share it with others who might be interested. And be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Gardener Scott channel. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.